Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this thematic session. Hopefully, you've chosen the thematic section that you want. This session is from open data to data visualization, following on very much from yesterday. And just in case you're in the wrong session, just to remind you, session 2 with Chris Burns, serving citizens with data viz, and session 3 is with Jennifer Baker, using data viz for policy making. So back to our open data to data visualization session. We're going to have a returning speaker for the start of this session, Benjamin Vidiker, the founder and director of Interactive Things, a design and technology studio. And since the last time we spoke, he looks a little different. He's grown a little beard, and I believe you're joining us from Montana. It's definitely the States. Is that correct, Benjamin? You'll be live. Yes, we can hear you. Where do you live right now, Benjamin?
It's Colorado. Close to Montana,
Colorado.
But a little bit more
somewhere where beards were definitely in the majority. And your talk is entitled Empowering Citizens to Turn Open Data into Compelling Insights, and will feature work commissioned and co-created by the Swiss Federal Administration. Over to you, Benjamin.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. Quick thumbs up that the slides are visible.
Yes, they are.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So, as I've been already introduced, my name is Benjamin. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Interactive Things. We're a design studio for human data interaction. And today I would like to talk about how we can empower citizens, not only with open data, but how they can actually use open data, so how they can turn it into insightful visualizations. And the example that I'm using to talk about this is a new open data portal that we have built for the Swiss Federal Office of the Environment. We call it Visualize. It's accessible at visualize.admin.ch. And the idea behind this new platform was to create a self-service interface that empowers users to visualize open data. It has sort of like smart defaults built into it. It has design best practices built into it. And it provides sort of like a series of options to share and embed the visualizations in order to sort of like boost the insights that can be gleaned from within that data. Before I jump into how we've built it and why we've built it, a brief context of where this new tool sort of like lives within the communication chain of the Federal Office for the Environment. So the Federal Office for the Environment produces a series of different data products. We start at the very bottom where they sort of like obviously like measure and conduct surveys and collect observations. And all of that raw data is oftentimes published as specialized databases that are merely or primarily focused for experts. One layer up, so like one step of refinement up, we have sort of like base data, which is cleaned, open, accessible data. And that data is both interesting to the general public as well as to domain experts. And that is being published as open data on opendata.swiss or as geospatial data on geo.admin.ch, and now also as visualize.admin.ch. And then sort of like the last step of refinement is curated, aggregated data in the forms of figures, tables, graphics, maps, and so forth that are oftentimes being used in reports primarily geared towards the public. So this is roughly the ecosystem where visualize.admin.ch lives. So the question that we have to ask first, obviously, is like, okay, why should we build a new interface? What are the barriers that we currently see in the open data user journey? And I'm using this very simplified open data user journey here, where a user first starts with a question. So they have a question or they have a task at hand where open data could be useful to help answer that question or complete that task. Next, they go look for the right data set to help them answer that question, right? So identify the right data set that will help them complete their task. And then finally, completing the task. So answering the question, using the data to do so. Maybe a little bit overly simplistic, but let's use this as a sort of like guide for our journey today. So currently, OpenData.Swiss does this in the following way. So you land on the website, you have a big catalog, you can search, you can browse to identify your data set. When you have found the data set, you can learn a little bit more about the data. It provides meta information, so like it helps you get the context around the data set. And it even provides you with a sort of like a short preview of the data structure, and you can quickly look into the distribution of the data with sort of like a basic chart. So that helps to get a glimpse into the data set. But what this sort of like where this portal ends is basically when people have to now answer the question, where they have to complete the task. So if we merely want to give data into people's hands, then OpenData.Swiss already does this task masterfully. But if we aspire to support people in reviewing the data, analyzing it, understanding it, and apply it to answer their question and complete their tasks, then we realize that we have a few more barriers to move out of the way. Because oftentimes what people do is they take the data and now they have sort of like a plethora of tools at their disposal to understand the data and eventually complete the task with it. Common software like Excel or PowerPoint, advanced analytics tools like Power BI or Tableau, simple web applications like Data Wrapper or Flourish, all the way to building own custom software with R, Python, or JavaScript. So the choice of the tool and how to apply it is left in the hands of users, which is ideal for advanced users who have the knowledge and skills to do so. But it's not so ideal for people who might lack the technical expertise for how to use them. So we identified a few challenges that we wanted to overcome with building Visualize. The first one, we wanted to sort of like fix the incomplete tool chain. We didn't want to stop with providing data sets. We wanted to actually help people and provide them with the tool to analyze and visualize that. We also wanted to sort of like lower the required expertise. So creating clear and compelling visualizations is a technical craft, and we can't expect all people who want to work with open data to have or acquire that craft. And the last thing is we wanted to making sense of open data a collaborative effort and not sort of like a one-man show. So current portals oftentimes lack the possibility to share and collaborate on these insights. So solution might be a little bit of a big of a word, but here's our approach, how we sort of like try to overcome these challenges. Our aspirations were, we wanted to give people access with confidence, like one unified interface to access all the data independent on the different silos where that data might be coming from. We wanted to help them visualize for efficacy. So we wanted to empower them and create visualizations that are already well designed and usable without any sort of like programming or advanced technical skills required. And we wanted to help them share these visualizations, share these insights with others so that others can sort of like contribute or at least sort of like directly learn from. So this is what the Visualize currently looks like. It's not quite unsimilar to OpenData.Swiss, where you can search and browse the data sets. You can identify them and learn more about the data set using the provided meta information. But then we switch over. We switch into letting them choose different chart types to visualize that data. That could be a column chart, an area chart, or a scatter plot. They can further customize the chart and highlight sort of like specific aspects and specific insights that they're interested in. Maybe the area chart was still the the best way to show that data. So they can customize, they can sort, they can partition, they can change the color schemes, and so forth to sort of like truly highlight the aspects that they think are most interesting about that data set. Lastly, they can provide the appropriate annotations, so they can give a title and a description for that chart before it's ready to be shared. It can be shared as a URL, it can be embedded into any other website or report, and other users sort of like can use the link and the visualization and then basically open that back up into the editor to make customizations and adjustments based on what has already been created. In a way, this allows people to reuse other people's visualizations that are based on the same data provided as open data. So the current platform has a couple of principles that were important to us that we wanted to build right into the tool. First, there's a wide range of well-designed charts at everybody's disposal. All of those charts can be used without any coding skills required. All of the charts are completely responsive for mobile, tablet, and desktop devices. The charts are built in with a strong focus on accessibility, so they all comply with level AA of the WCAG. We allow customization so that the charts can also sort of like fit with existing branding guidelines, for example. Working in Switzerland, obviously we have to support 4 different languages with everything that we do on the web. So all the visualizations are localizable and can be translated into all languages. We always provide the underlying data as open format with every visualization. So from every visualization, you can download the specific data set that this visualization is using. And a particular aspect of this new interface was that it's ready for linked open data. So a certain structure how the data is stored in the database and sort of like the interface is ready to connect to a linked data store. What was most important, though, for our client and really appreciated by us is that all this development happened really open. So first and foremost, Visualize is completely open source and can be used and is accessible to everyone. The second is it's also open for contribution. So it has been sort of like commissioned by the Swiss federal government, but it has been developed in collaboration with the private sector as well. And we welcome contributions from everyone. And third, it's open for benefit in the sense that it has been initiated by the Federal Office for the Environment, but we have been able to onboard other offices onto the same platform as well. And we're actively looking for partners who would like to use this interface and help push it forward. If you'd like to learn more about the tool itself, if you'd like to give it a spin, you can just go over to visualize.admin.ch. It is under active development, so you might see over time new visualization types coming into play, new interface features coming into play, but it's already ready for you to use. If you have any questions, if you would like to discuss any of these points, then I'm obviously available now for questions, or later on Swapcard if you'd like to have a chat. Thank you very much, and yeah, looking forward to the rest of the session.
Thank you so much. And yes, we do indeed have a question coming in here from Ebrian, who writes, you seem to have focused on technical challenges regarding creating the figures. COVID shows us once more how relatively simple data sets can still lead to wildly different conclusions. Did you select the data to account for this or help guide people on how to interpret the data? And if so, how?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a wonderful question and a very difficult to answer one. So what we do with the tool is correct in the sense that it's correct that it's technically oriented. So what we try to do, because we know a little bit about the data set thanks to its linked data structure, is we try to advise on which visualization techniques are most helpful to view the data. So we try to have sort of like smart defaults that help people start on the right foot. What we, through the tool, can't do is ensure that people take away the correct insight. So in the sense that like interpreting what the data now means, that is something that the tool itself can't do. So in a sort of like bad scenario, obviously, still visualizations created with Visualize can be interpreted in the wrong way and could be put into the wrong context. What we try to do to prevent that, or at least sort of like mitigate it to a certain degree, is the raw data can always be downloaded. It has an attribution to where the data is coming from, so a proper source attribution, so that the chart can be reproduced and the data can be tracked back to its source. And hopefully this way, charts at least are not being misused. If they're being misinterpreted, then that's still a possibility that we weren't able to overcome.
Thank you, Benjamin. Another question that is coming in here, a great initiative. I would like to know what you did to make the visualizations more accessible and comply to the WCAG guidelines.
So all the visualizations are built with sort of like web standard technology, meaning that it's, at the end of the day, it's an HTML document. We're using SVG for the visualizations. So there are a few sort of like technical implementations that you can do to ensure that these visualizations are accessible. That goes from sort of like providing an alt description to, again, have it as an SVG, which allows for a screen reader to read through the legend, read through the labels and so forth. And then sort of like as a last step, I think, or maybe even as a last resort, the raw data could be downloaded as a CSV file if sort of like something is not readable or is cumbersome because the data set is too large. Then a user could still sort of like access the underlying information and open it in a tool that might help them, even though there might be sort of like visual barriers in the visual perception for the charts themselves.
Great. I have another question coming in here. How do you handle scenarios where the data is updated at a later point in time? Do published visualizations automatically get updated with the newest version of the linked data, or are they created using a data snapshot?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And there are benefits in both directions. We decided to go in the direction where the visualizations themselves are not automatically updated with new data. The reason for that being, if the visualizations are being embedded or shared at a certain point in time, we don't want to invalidate sort of like the surrounding content. Let's imagine that somebody embeds a 2020 visualization into a report, and then 2024 the data updates. Then the experience for somebody reading that report might be weird because the textual content is from 2020 and the visualization is from 2024. So the visualization that you create basically creates a snapshot of that point in time when you publish that visualization. You can easily open it back up in the editor and include new data and republish it. So that workflow is always possible. But we do not automatically update the data as new data becomes available, for the reason of we don't know where these visualizations might live.
And another question to you. Do you have API access to the data portal? And I should say also, not everybody is up to speed with all the acronyms, so I'll allow you to extend what these acronyms are. But do you have API access to the data portal?
Yeah. So an API or API access means that somebody can programmatically access the data without using a browser. So a person can write a script that basically goes to the data portal and retrieves the data automatically. So in most sort of like web application architecture, you usually have a front end, which is what the user sees, and you have an API layer that retrieves the data from a database and then gives that into the front end so that the user can work with it. In our case here, there is an API that retrieves the data from the linked data store and provides that to the front end. At this point, this endpoint is accessible to everybody. So other developers or people with the technical skills to access the data through the API can indeed go and access the data from the database through that API endpoint directly.
That's wonderful. Well, there's plenty of questions coming in for you, but again, if I can suggest, you can all direct your questions via swap card to Benjamin himself online. And Benjamin, I hope to see you another year running, whichever country or continent you'll end up on then.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for moderating.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and good luck with your work in Colorado for the Swiss government.